Hey everyone, today I'm in the forest in the middle of the day with the sun shining all over these leaves. It's green now and this vegetation deserves photographing. But how do you photograph a place like this in a moment like this when the sunlight is everywhere? So this is what we're going to tackle today. How do you approach forest photography in moments like this in the middle of the day where you have spots of light everywhere? You have two situations in a day like this. You either have clouds in the sky and then you have the benefit of some diffuse light from time to time, or you have spots of light everywhere in the forest, and in that moment you need to find places where the light works in your favor. As you can see right now, the sun has entered behind a cloud, or the cloud covered the sun. And I had to move quickly. Whenever you are in a situation like this, the best tip that I can give you is to move quickly, because you don't know when the sun is going to get out again, and you will not be able to take big panoramas in the forest. For the first shot, I decided to concentrate on this tree that is bending its branches towards this side, and then I have some light in that area, some ferns here on the ground. So I think this is a very picturesque way that you can frame everything using a tree. If you're doing portrait photography, you can also place a subject right there near the trunk of the tree. So it's a theme, if you want. These are some elements that you can search in the forest, and for example, from this area it also looks really interesting and really well. The next photo that I decided to do is this lonely tree that is surrounded by these ferns at its base, and it looks really well to have this dark contrasty trunk surrounded by all this green. Now there's a situation when there are spots of light again inside the forest, so I need to find elements that are interesting to look at and to try and isolate them from the rest of the forest. Now a quick tip: it doesn't matter when you're photographing inside the forest, you always need to have a circular polarizer mounted on your lens. Probably the only moment when you don't use it is going to be during winter, but in any other situation a polarizer is an absolute must. Even if you have clouds covering the entire sky and you have diffuse light in the forest, the polarizer will work, trust me. And now it's time to move on to some different kind of shots, and I would call these kind of shots intimate shots because they are close-ups of nature. And these kind of shots you have to understand that they work better in series of photos. If you're only going to do one, it's not going to be that spectacular. But when you do multiple similar photos, then they all make sense. They all spoke the same language. They all tell the same story. I found these interesting white flowers and the dead trunk, but I don't think I can position myself with the tripod the way I want it. So I'm going to take the camera off the tripod and use f8 because I photographed by hand. I want to check that the photo is sharp, and it is. Now a variation of this, because these flowers are further away from the trunk. Now I also see some flowers that are closer to the trunk, so I'm going to do also these kind of photos and see which version is going to look better. Right now I think I like better this other version when the flowers are closer to the trunk. And in a moment like this, you need to experiment. You need to try and find different compositions, different elements. Now, in this direction over here, there's a variation on this theme because we have two branches that are going out, so it's worth photographing over here as well because I have the same contrast, the same interest points, and I also think that this will also look better. For a moment I could say I am really lucky today because the sun is staying more behind the clouds and out of the clouds, so the light is diffused, so I can enjoy photography without that much thought. The only problem I'm having is with some flies, and there are some wasps that are buzzing around me. Probably there's a nest around. I have to be careful not to disturb them. I'm seeing this area with lots of ferns that I think is going to look really interesting as a texture and background. When you're photographing ferns, you can do it straight from the top, a top view, and have that beautiful display of the fern leaves that are spreading around a center point, or you can do it as a background or a texture where you are incorporating multiple ferns in the same shot. Usually I'm photographing them from above. I'm photographing from the side, like I would sit something like this, only in a situation when I have a tree or something interesting that is beyond the ferns. As I told you, the most obvious way to photograph ferns are coming right here and photographing them straight from the top, and this is exactly what I'm going to do right now. Let's see, something like this, or we can look further down at the base of the ferns. So there are all sorts of variations for this shot. Now that the sun decided to pop a little bit out, I think it gives me a few other opportunities to compose. This is something very beautiful here. It's a place where the ferns intersected themselves, and I think this will look really, really beautiful. This intersection looks really well. It's almost like when I'm working with a human subject and he or she strikes a pose, it catches my attention, and it's really nice and beautiful. And this is a demonstration of how you isolate the subject, even if it's light everywhere. You see that area over there? When I'm exposing for the ferns, that area becomes black, and because of the differences in stops of light between light and shadow. So now I can create a really interesting shot when I'm having only the ferns and then the darkness behind them, which looks almost like a minimalist shot, which in the forest it's not that easy to take because of all this chaos and clutter and all the vegetation that is growing. So whenever you get the chance to photograph the forest in a minimalist way, go for it. Till next time, keep on photographing because it's the only way that you can get better. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.